The topic for discussion is information management and information technology. So you might expect a pretty technical discussion, but in actual fact, there should be no IMIT projects. IMIT is the abbreviation for information management and technology. There shouldn't be technical projects for technology's sake. There should only be business projects, but each business project can be enabled by technology. So before I talk about technology at all, we have to talk about what business problem are we trying to solve. And it starts with the RBR program. The RBR program is in support of the mission of the Ministry of Environment. So what are we here to do? We're here to protect the environment and promote the sustainable use of natural resources for economic and social benefits. So everything we do should be based on that, and then the technology enables that. So our strategic objective in achieving that mission is to move from a command and control kind of prescriptive approach to a collaborative approach with the communities, which includes big industry, medium-sized industry, and the general public. The RBR program management is a framework for making it happen. So part of my discipline is there's three things. There used to be project management. Project is managing a single project. A program is managing a business program. Portfolio management is managing multiple programs and projects to a single goal. And again, that's why it's so important that we're protecting the environment, and our mission is front and foremost in everything we do. So there's lots of components to the results-based program. The environmental code is fundamental, that we publish the code and we let industry know what their responsibilities are. There's legislation, making legislative change. There's an entire culture within the ministry. We have a business transformation, training, audit and compliance and enforcement, change management, and then again, there's an enabler, the technology component. IMIT people love data flow diagrams or workflow, but ours is really simple. Where does it, like input, process, output. So what is the primary input at the highest level that initiates something that technology can keep track of? And it's humans. Humans are on the environment, on the landscape. They're doing industrial development, they're hunting or fishing, they're doing exploration, they're doing research. So our analysis of our input is humans are doing something, and that triggers what we need to do, and what we are doing is monitoring. So my background is banking. I did the Interact system for credit unions, and I actually did the SGI, Saskatchewan Government Insurance. Those are very similar. We're tracking everything like a bank statement, so we're tracking. So if we can track everything industry does, we get a really good profile of the industries. And the other thing we need to track is the location, what's happened at this particular space. So let's imagine I'm standing out in northern Saskatchewan somewhere in the forest. What has been here? Has there been any impacted sites? Is there any spills here? So I need to know everything about the people and then about the places. And then we can do some trend analysis. So there's proponents that have clearly accepted their responsibility according to the code. We pretty much, we like those guys. We know what they're doing, and they know what they have to do, and that's that collaborative. But we are not, it's not a free ride. We're monitoring things. So those that aren't, and there's some track records that aren't so good, well then we know where to spend our compliance and enforcement dollars to make sure that we're saving the environment. So I'm going to talk about two of our major streams, and information management, information technology at its foundation is data. So there's this big database we've designed, and the database has two great big components. The first one is centered on a thing I call the stakeholder, and the stakeholder is kind of a generic term. What it means is the person, the organization, the customer, the client. We call them proponents, so many names. In the past, and I mean we've been at this for about a year, in the past we were clearly not stakeholder-centric, and to illustrate that point, each branch would do their own information technology project. They'd get their own database, and then as a result, SAS Power would be needed to be recorded as it relates to the municipal branch, and then SAS Power would be needed as it relates to the industrial branch. And when I looked at conversion of data, there's 107 different occurrences of, as an example, and a real example of SAS Power. So that actually is the opposite of the power of a single stakeholder. So So the kind of corny, but the power of one, having the one, because all information management and information technology should do is reflect more about real life, and amazing how far off it can get when you get a whole bunch of little projects done over time with a number of different people. You end up with actually not understanding how to save the environment, or actually knowing what the true relationship is between these big companies and both the Ministry of Environment and the environment itself. It makes sense that big companies do work they have to break the work down. So you have branches, you have departments. So when I have a big company and we have the Ministry of Environment, we're actually facilitating a many-to-many relationship between those two organizations. So when I say enterprise to enterprise, that's what I mean. So what we have is a single view of our stakeholders, and I've only talked about it from the Ministry of Environment point of view, but what we really have is an enterprise to enterprise view. So for our large industrial clients, they have multiple locations, multiple departments, multiple lines of business. So we actually facilitate through our dashboard the communications across their organization, which be quite complex. And it's very rare in information technology systems. We are not alone. All of these other companies have computer systems that were developed over time by each branch. So it's very rare that you would find a company that isn't experiencing the same dilemma that we had. So what we have is a many-to-many relationship that we're facilitating through this thing we call the business transaction dashboard. So we've got that single view of our stakeholder, but the other thing we've got is when we do interaction with the large clients, the medium size and the small, we also need to interact better than we were before. The CRM software has knowledge articles that help the client service staff answer a lot of questions. But if they can't answer it, this is something to do. They want to know how many parts per million of salt is in Wascana Lake, and they want it in technical terms. Well, that's not something a person other than one of the biologists can answer. So the CRM software then allows the work to be transferred to an expert. And what if that expert's not at their computer? So there's a team queue, it's called. So we actually put 3 to 8 to 10 people in that team queue. So any one of those people can get that question routed to them, and then they can answer that quite quickly. So we're answering everything from the simple question through the knowledge article to that we can transfer it to a team queue. And that team queue is big enough that it's not 1 or 2 people, it's more than that. It goes to the team queue, they can actually answer it, and then we can actually satisfy as many requests as possible right there on the phone, or through the portal, or through fax, or through walk-in. So if they walk in, those people will have access to this CRM software. So I mentioned a few times the business transaction dashboard. So what it is, it's what we're doing is tracking every activity between a stakeholder being one of those many people, and the ministry. We've talked about knowing more and more about people, big industry, medium-sized municipalities, citizens when they're hunting and fishing. The second one is location. So technology, that database, is not the same. The database for people is called tabular data. It's in rows and columns. It's tables of data, name, address, all transactions. The geospatial is maps, and the maps come in layers. So again, as we were stakeholder centric is one big picture of our database. The other picture is we are location centric. And most of the big companies in Saskatchewan have very sophisticated, lots of investment in geospatial technology. So Sask Power has a geospatial system, and they track all the power lines. And as new power lines are added, or power lines are sunsetted out, they keep track of that in a geospatial technology system. Sasktel would keep track of the telephone lines, and the forestry industry keeps track of the forestry. We keep track of species at risk. We keep track of a lot of environmental concern. We keep track of impacted sites where there's a spill that has occurred, either reported by industry or found by us. But what hasn't happened in the industry, everybody has been trying to build the mother of all geospatial systems, and it has not worked. So the industry has not satisfied our business need. at this point. And at the environment, we need these layers, as I mentioned. We need all the layers. In order to truly meet our mandate, we need to know everything that's going on at that landscape. Pick a point. Has there been any spills in this location? All of the provincial, federal, municipal, private industry, if they're going to do exploration, there is a legal requirement to do duty to consult with First Nations. There is a First Nations geospatial database sponsored by the federal government that tells us where's the burial ground, where are the different sites that are off limits to industrial development. But that data is not available to all the people that need to see it. So my background is Interac. So Interac facilitates the exchange of data between all the big banks, all the credit. My job was to actually get all the credit unions across Canada to look like they were one bank by the time they exchanged data with the other banks. And then when we got into the full debit card and point of sale, then we actually get all the banks interacting with all of the merchants or all the stores and retail outlets. So all you need is the Interac is an association. So what we've been doing sponsored by the Ministry of Environment, we're getting a lot of traction, is create a geospatial broker organization. There's very little in it. It's not data. It's data. It's called metadata, data about data. So I want to get a map and I want to know everything that's happening up at Lac La Ronge. And so I know some stuff on my own geospatial system at the Ministry of Environment. I need to know where the roads are. Well, the roads are being maintained by the Ministry of Highways. So all I know is the data I want in this particular request sitting at my workstation. I don't have it on my database. So I got some that's called mine and some that's not mine. So it goes to the broker organization. It says, oh, you want road data. So it goes and gets the data from highways. It goes and gets the First Nations data from the federal database. It goes gets the species at risk database from our species at risk database, brings it all back, and now you actually get to see everything you need to see about that space. So the broker organization is just like a big hub. It just directs you to the data never leaves its source. It stays there and is maintained by what's called an authoritative source. And then when you need it for a particular business problem, we go get it through the geospatial broker. There is exchanges started at the community level, and at the provincial level, Esri happened to have won a request for proposal to help facilitate all of the executive government geospatial systems, and the model there is the broker model. So we've managed to get some traction there. And at the federal with Natural Resources Canada, they also love this concept, and so that's just in the works to actually bring all of those exchanges together so that when I'm at my screen and I want to know what's been going on at Lac La Ronge and everything, I can actually go, it's called a mashup, I can go get the data from all these exchanges and actually satisfy a business problem. So to bring it back home a little bit, up in Prince Albert, we actually had in the forestry industry, there's a small number of very large forestry companies, and we have forestry management agreements with them, and they have, guess what, they have some geospatial systems. And so we were up there with some of the Esri Canada people and all of the forestry, a representative from all the forestry companies. And just with a whiteboard, we very quickly said, is there data you guys want from us? This is the forestry from the Ministry of Environment. And just as quick as anything, we need to know where you've leased land, crown lands for cabin owners. Where are the cabins? If there's outfitters, where's the outfitter boundaries? Power line easements, I'm reading oil and gas boundaries. So they listed them in no time. And then I had a number of the business people at our forestry branch. Well, what information do we want from the forestry industry? And they were just as quick on the other side. So in less than an hour, and I have it right here, the output from that simple meeting was, we should have a data exchange. Which is, it seems like, yeah, we should have had this a long time ago. But everybody's doing their own, so that's where the broker comes in. The broker is friends to everyone and actually facilitates the exchange of data. So we're busy at work doing that because it's the forestry company, we meet with them all the time, and so now we're facilitating the exchange of data between us and those forestry companies. So back to our objectives, it's to protect the environment in really simple terms. And we're protecting it against humans. We're doing that by monitoring the people and monitoring the places. And both of them are about data. And the people data is our transaction dashboard, and then the places is the geospatial technology, which we're brokering the best layer from all the other companies. So we've done a lot of work to get the databases designed, both for our people and our places, and now we have our clients entering data. It's getting good, but we're actually going to go back in time and take some of our historical data, put it in there, and then what we're doing very soon is to take mobile devices, and this data is so good we want to get it in the hands of our conservation officers and get it out in the field.